Welcome to the City of Madeira Beach, Florida Local Planning Agency and Planning Commission meeting for Monday, May 3rd, 2021 at 6 p.m. This meeting is now called to order. May we have the roll, please?
Commissioner Gaither.
Present.
Commissioner Brooks. Here. Commissioner Preston. Commissioner Kerr.
Here.
Commissioner Wyckoff.
Here.
Commissioner Noble.
Here.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Agenda item number 3, public comment. Public participation is encouraged. If you are addressing the Planning Commission, step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes and only stay on topic. I was handed a note from the city staff, the Schooner Development Agreement. This item has been removed from the agenda and will be returned in the near future. Agenda item number 4, approval of the minutes. Do we have anybody have any problems with the minutes from 3/22/21 or 4/05/2021?
I move that the minutes be accepted as presented.
Can we get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And we can go to the vote.
Commissioner Gaither.
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks.
Yes.
Commissioner Kerr.
Yes.
Commissioner Wyckoff.
Yes.
Commissioner Noble.
Yes.
The vote passes unanimously.
All right, agenda item number 5, new business. A, cultural, recreation, and public safety.
Mr. Murphy.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mr. Chair, Vice Chairs. For the record, Jerry Murphy with the University of Florida, to talk about culture, recreation, and public safety impact fees. With the Chair's indulgence, I will remove my mask.
Yes, sir. Welcome back.
So I can enunciate a little.
You're a lot prettier than I remember.
Thank you, sir. What you have in front of you is basically a report that outlines the methodology that was used for the final culture and recreation and public safety fees, and a draft ordinance that includes the information and the fee amount. I'm happy to answer any questions or present whatever you might like to hear. It's pretty much the same thing we've been doing for the last year. This is getting to the end of it now. These are the last 2 fees that are being proposed. You've already addressed the mobility fee, and that's scheduled for second reading on Wednesday of next week, which I think is the 12th. And then this, after your consideration today and recommendation, this will move forward to the Board of County Commission, or the City Commissioners as well.
Okay, any of the, anybody have any comments regarding culture, recreation, and public safety? Do we have anybody from the audience that would like to speak on this topic? Yes, Ray?
Jerry, I have a question.
Sure.
Or actually a comment with a question following it. The state board is trying to do what they can do to incentivize mitigation for residential properties to elevate. So in doing so, they're looking at not assessing additional property values to that property when they do, except for any excess. It's like 110%. So if you have a 1,000 square foot home and you raise it, you can put another 1,000 square foot home plus 10% above that same property without having any impact on their
Tax assessment?
their ad valorem taxes. That being said, I asked early on if there was any way that it could only be these changes be made for commercial properties only and not residential, and I was told that you couldn't do that. Could that be done with an exemption? And if so, could these calculations be changed just for commercial properties and properties, I guess, that would qualify other than people that are going through the expense to raise their home to begin with. You know, I personally believe we want to incentivize everyone in the community to raise their homes if we can, just because it's less pressure on first responders, and I think in the long run, those funds will come back when the properties change hands. So I guess it'll be the same way here. So I know I'm throwing a twist in it, but I'd at least like to have that in the discussion and get that in, you know, have that discussion go forward.
And so if I may, Mr. Chair, you're talking about what the legislature is proposing, I'm assuming it's the legislature,
Right.
that they're proposing an exemption for a 10% increase over existing square footage to allow for modification.
110%.
110%.
Yeah.
So 1,000 would become 2,100?
I guess so. Haven't seen exact
Yeah.
calculations.
I couldn't see that being rationally done with impact fees. A 10%, something small, something negligible, you might say, was probably something that could be affected, and it would be a policy decision of the commission. Another potential policy of the commission is to not adopt at 100%, to adopt at a lower percentage of the fee. But an actual exemption like that for impact fees, I don't think we have that type of flexibility. Ad valorem taxes are discretionary. You levy them and then you allocate them however you want to. I mean, there's no real compartmentalization. Impact fees are a fee for a particular service, and so they have to be accounted.
Right, but again, and that's what I'm trying to have in the discussion. Personally, I don't think that most people that raise their homes are impacting the community at all.
They're not increasing the square footage of the home, they're just elevating the home. There would be no fee associated with that.
It would only, okay.
But if they're increasing the square footage of the home, that would be an additional impact.
You're correct. I've forgotten about that. Okay.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Murphy?
I've got a quick one, if you don't mind. So as I'm reading this, we're assuming, based on your study, that for every square feet, give or take, of living area or commercial space that's built out, we need 1 square foot of municipal culture and recreation space. That's the, right, if I work the math backwards?
No, it's for every square foot of additional commercial or residential, private commercial or residential space, we need the equivalent of what is currently provided to the existing square footage on the island. So it's not a 1-to-1 ratio.
I see.
And
Is there?
I can direct you to page 18 of 32.
Yeah, that's wrong. I got my notes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the ratio is, I will find it. So in table 1, the ratio is the third, or the fourth row. The level of service equals the improved acres, and that's of municipal property. And for this case, it's culture and recreation, public safety is below that. And that ratio then is divided down from acres, which are a little hard to manage, to get to a square foot to square foot basis. And that's the 6.879, and then you have, e to the minus 6. And that basically works out to 0.29 square feet for every square foot of built area.
Okay. Right, so it's backwards, it's 3 feet for every 3 feet of buildable area, we need 1 foot 1 square foot of
Yeah, that's about right. It's not quite.
1.3,
It's, yeah, for every
whatever.
square foot of built area, it's another 0.3%
Right.
of culture and
Is
recreation.
there a point where we reach an economy of scale on that, where there's, like, I'm picturing some of these larger projects, or is that a full blanket statement that it works regardless of the size of a particular project?
The way we've calculated it here, because the city is built out horizontally and everything now is redevelopment
Yeah.
or going up in the air, you know, you're still increasing that capacity, as the legislature does not want to recognize.
Right.
And so we're saying that this is the elevation of, you know, the recreational facilities. That money would then go to keeping that same percentage. You would build additional recreation facilities, buy additional land. That may be sooner than we think we'll be acquiring properties. But that continues. And now if the city updates and they have not invested or haven't acquired as much, then there's a chance for that to change. And that's why you update your fees on a regular basis to make sure that the calculation is current. But as you're gaining additional square footage in the denominator, if the numerator does not change along with it, then things will adjust one way or the other.
Okay. So based on what you're presenting here, we're looking at $12.49 a square foot of build area as the impact fee.
Yeah, it's $11.89, $12 if you want to call it that, for Parks and Recreation, 60 cents for public safety, and I think it's $1.50 for mobility. So all of those add up to.
I forgot about the mobility.
Yeah,
So we're adding $14 roughly a square foot
roughly, yes.
to the cost to build. So we're getting in the 7 or 8% range on a typical construction project now. That's in keeping with other areas within the state?
Yes.
Okay.
Our methodology is somewhat different because of the square foot comparison. A lot of other places will use units. I don't think that's an effective measure here. Bedrooms, not really effective. You're built out. So what the city is providing in terms of amenities, services, facilities, has a proportion to what's here. And as the proportion of what's here increases through redevelopment or new development, the city needs to keep up with that same proportion if you want to preserve what we're calling the quality of life here at the beach. And as I mentioned earlier with Commissioner Kerr, the city may choose to adopt at a percentage of the full impact. That's allowable. I don't know where that's going to go.
Okay, so is there a reasonable expectation of a diminishment of services based on the fact that we're really not going out, we're going up?
I think not in the near future. I mean, the city's in a situation where they have quite a bit of property that they can improve and provide additional amenities. They'll be required to spend the fee for more culture and recreation. There is no flexibility like there is with ad valorem taxes about what the city can spend it on. Any impact fees collected for culture and recreation will have to be spent on improving culture and recreation. If they're not spent, like if the city chooses not to make those improvements within the period of the impact fee window, which I believe is 7 years, that money has to be returned.
And it's returned to those who paid the impact fee?
Yes.
Okay. My concern, obviously, being in the business that I'm in, and seeing what's happening in our Madeira Beach and surrounding markets, is a lot of redevelopment. And it's a pretty big impact. I mean, when you look at someone who, it's going to have an overall effect on individual property owners' values, because it's going to get factored into what a developer or an individual home builder would do if they had to scrape it and rebuild, and they're adding square footage. Kind of a lot. I mean, have we seen
It's significant.
Yeah, have we seen any diminishment of development activity in other areas that have recently enacted impact fees like this?
You know, there's an argument there that is always made by the development community that, oh, it's going to be the end of the world, you know,
Right.
or something like that. Generally, What happens in communities that levy impact fees and maintain their level of service standards is they keep growing.
Right.
You know, it's just part of the cost of doing business and part of the cost of being a citizen of Madeira Beach.
And I'm certainly,
you have-
we shouldn't have them, you know.
I'm sorry, if you go back and look at the inventories that we did before the level of service standards were adopted, you know, you have millions of dollars invested in culture and recreation here. It's the biggest thing that the city provides. And culture and recreation includes, you know, this whole campus, the fire department. Their fee can't be calculated the same way because the fire department has no acreage. They're part of this campus. And so we just basically look at what their costs are to provide their service distributed over across the built area of the city.
And we've not had any of these impact fees in the past. Any guess how we paid for them before? Just straight out of general budget, based on ad valorem taxes?
Grants, but generally it's ad valorem taxes. That's your biggest general revenue source.
So essentially, we're assigning that cost away from every homeowner and then sliding it over to new development projects.
Existing development has paid through ad valorem taxes. I mean, this is theoretically, I can't unwind that Gordian knot. But new development is increasing the capacity and therefore the potential for the impacts.
Perfect. Thanks for the explanation.
Yes, sir.
Very good. Anyone else? Okay, agenda item B, I think we kind of covered the same thing, right?
Yes, sir. I will note out that in the ordinance that you have, I noticed that the calculation is not set out. There's still highlights there, but the report has those calculations, and that'll be in the version that goes to the board for adoption.
So you just need our recommendation to approve with adding in the amounts.
Your recommendation of approval and recommended finding of consistency with the comprehensive plan.
If
And
there's no other questions or public comment, can we get someone to make the motion?
I'll
Okay,
make-
Mr. Murphy, hold on.
just one more thought, you know, so that comprehensive plan amendment for the level of service standards that we started with pre-COVID, maybe, that's all the steps that we needed to get through to get here today.
Okay,
And unless something happens procedurally that I can't foresee, this is your last discussion of impact fees until one of you
so,
presents before the...
right, if I understand it, we can make a recommendation if anybody wanted to say, we want them higher, we want them lower, but
I don't
it's
think
up
you
to
can
the
recommend
board.
higher. I
Okay.
can't justify higher.
Okay,
If you
Well,
want to
we could
go at a
recommend
lower
lower.
percentage,
Okay.
but it has to be a percentage, like
gotcha.
50%.
Across the board. Okay, with that new info, would anybody like to make a motion?
I would make a motion to recommend at the findings.
And the comprehensive plan,
Consistency with...
consistent. And we will just leave it up to the Board of Commissioners to get the percentage on the numbers.
I agree.
Yeah, we'll just go with them or with the numbers that you were talking about, will be in the motion. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, just for the sake of perfect clarity, given what we're talking about and where it may go. Could Ms. Harvey read back the motion?
Move to recommend of approval and finding of consistency with the comp plan with the impact fees as presented to the Board of Commissioners. Is that correct?
That'll work.
Excellent. Can we get a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Gaither?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Kerr?
Yes.
Commissioner Wykoff?
Yes.
Commissioner Noble?
Yes.
The vote passes unanimously.
Okay, moving right along this evening.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, sir, Mr. Murphy.
I just want to make a point on the record that there's been almost no public participation in this entire process the entire time. I don't know if that's going to hold true for the next two hearings, but, you know, there's been ample opportunity for people to comment and to participate, and that has generally been a no-starter. There may be a lot of COVID reasons to that, but even through emails and, virtual public comment, almost nothing.
Yeah, I think some of the regulars aren't coming because of COVID, but they still have their opportunity over the other venues and means of getting their comment out.
Yes, sir.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
So then we'll be moving on to number 6. There's no old business or administrative. Number 7, administrative presentation from the staff. Anything?
It was just the amended conditions that Linda read to the board on our last meeting for the schooner, and since we didn't hand them out, we provided them to you as an informational item.
Okay.
And to the public side.
To the public.
Right.
So we'll probably see the schooner next meeting is what we're anticipating?
We anticipate June.
Okay. So there might be some public comment involved with that.
Yes, sir.
And nobody emailed anything to Linda for Planning Commission open discussion, agenda item 8?
Not to date.
Okay. And then agenda item number 9, our next meeting is June 7th, 2021, in these chambers at 6 o'clock.
And Mr. Chair, if I may, the July meeting is on the 4th. So at the next meeting in June, we're going to vote on your day in June. I think it's possible that we might be having 2 meetings, but just so you know, we'll have a vote on that in June.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep. Very fair. Thanks for the heads up. I mean, would it help the city staff if we voted on that now?
I would prefer to wait for the vote
Okay.
for when Linda is here,
Very good.
okay?
Yes, perfect. Okay, and we have, like you had mentioned, agenda item number 10, informational materials from the Schooner PD 2021-01. We have those in our agenda item packet. Anybody have anything to say about that? Then this meeting is adjourned. Good job. Woo!